You're listening to She's the Business podcast. Do you know what the warning signs are that you could be close to burnout? Well, if you're a high-achieving, highly capable woman who sets very high expectations of herself, just like me, then you're going to want to stick around to listen to this episode that I've got for you today, all about the warning signs that you are getting close to burnout, but what you can do right now to avoid getting there. Stay tuned. Hi, I'm your host, Jessica Osborne, and in my 23 years of business and marketing, I've built many brands to become multi-billion-dollar companies. And just in the last 10 years, I've built 2 online businesses of my own from my dining room table with 2 little babies running around at my feet. I've made it my mission to inspire you to get out of your own way and become the successful business owner who's living the lifestyle you really desire without all the hustle. This is She's the Business podcast, made by women for women. This is your weekly dose of motivation and inspiration. Just imagine, what would you do if you suddenly weren't able to get out of bed, to take your kids to school, to do anything, to not even work on your business? If you had reached burnout, then this would be a very real eventuality for you. Now, of course, burnout is something that we can prevent and we can also recover from. And I think it's something many of us don't even consider could be a possibility until we're right in the thick of it. So I'm really, really excited to bring you an interview with Honni Hayton, who is a counsellor for women. She's actually degree qualified in psychology and very, very experienced in counselling women through these situations of high stress and mental load. And burnout is something that she particularly really focuses on and has programs that she helps women to recover from. But she's going to share with us today the warning signs that we can all look out for and what we can do to help prevent burnout now before it actually happens, which I think is obviously the best thing that we could possibly do. So without further ado, let me play the interview with Honni for you, and I will link up all of her website and her socials in the show notes so that you can go and have a look for yourself and find out more about her afterwards. So thank you for joining me today, Honni. Really, really excited to have this chat and to have the chat for the members in my tribe as well, because I think at the moment, I don't know about you, but I certainly feel there's a lot going on. There's lots of things in the external world. There's our business. For those of us who are mums, there's a lot going on with our kids. We're all back to school and my brain feels very full. So I think the topic of, really avoiding burnout and understanding burnout is probably really, really relevant for a lot of us. So I appreciate you being here today and taking the time to share with us some of your amazing expertise. So do you want to start off and just give us the quick, 1 moment intro into who you are, what your business is and your background, and then I'll get you to describe really what is burnout so that we're all starting on the same page.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thanks for having me on today, Jessica. It's really great to have the opportunity to talk to women about burnout and mental health, because it's what I'm passionate about. I absolutely love it. I could talk all day about women's health, women's mental health and preventing burnout. It really is my passion. So I have a counselling practice out in the Scenic Rim in Queensland, and I see women both in person at my practice and online. And I do specialise in women and women's mental health because I think we have some really unique things that we deal with as women in a modern day life. We're, like you said, we're running a family. A lot of us are running businesses, and all the expectations that women have, there's a lot going on for us, and we're very much brought up to do all the things. A lot of it gets lumped on women to, be the social organizer of the family, to be the peacekeeper, keep relationships going, parenting. A lot of women are co-parenting, experiencing, marriage breakdown, all that. And life's just become very complicated, and it does build up on us, and it does take its toll. And in my practice, I'm seeing more and more women really facing the real possibility of burnout. And there's an old saying of prevention is better than cure. So I really like to talk to women about preventing burnout before they actually get there. Is really what I'm about. Yeah.
Yeah, I can so relate to that, because as good as my husband is very hands-on and does a lot, which I'm very grateful for, but he does not keep track of anything to do with the kids and what they need to do, where they're up to, what their activities are, the dentist, immunizations, anything like that. He has no idea about any of it. And he doesn't get it when I say, it's the mental load. I've got too much in my head. And he's like, what are you talking about? He thinks that it's the same as what he's dealing with. So
Absolutely.
Yes. So tell us, what actually is burnout? What does that even mean?
Yeah. So it is a bit of a buzzword that gets, tossed around a bit, but it is a very serious mental health condition. And it's when so stress is what we perceive is happening to us. And it's when we are acting outside our scope, when we have things that are sapping our energy, taking our time and our energy and all that. As stress is a state of activation. So having a little bit of stress in our life is good because it gets us doing what we need to do. So a little bit of stress about I've got to get up in the morning and I've got to go to work and I've got to pay the bills. A little bit of stress is good. If we didn't have any, we wouldn't get anything done. We'd just sit on the beach all day, which would be very nice, but we wouldn't get anything done. So a little bit of stress is good. But when stress is overwhelming and prolonged for a long period of time, that's when we can, really hit the skids and start to experience burnout. And that's, the symptoms of burnout, what it can look like is withdrawal from things that you used to like doing, starting even depression, a feeling of hopelessness that things aren't going to get better, and just a general discouragement about life. It's all just too hard, too much. And if we don't notice and recognize those early warning signs, we can actually collapse and have, a burnout, and they used to, I guess, in the old days, call it a nervous breakdown, where your body just says, I can't do this any longer. I've had enough, and just sort of fall over. So, it's not a nice place to be. Pardon?
So when you do have that nervous breakdown, like what actually happens, I guess, because obviously we might be thinking, okay, we don't want that. But I think it brings it really to life when we can understand what is that terrible end of the road look like, that we actually do want to put some steps in place to try to avoid getting there. So
it's not a good place to be. It can be just unable to do the things that you want to do in your life. So unable to go to work, unable to parent anymore, unable to make decisions. So your mind is just so foggy and overwhelmed that you don't have any clarity, that you just can't make decisions anymore. You can't meet deadlines anymore. You just don't have any energy. Sometimes you just can't even get out of bed. It's like your body says, no, we're not going anywhere today. We just need to stop. So it's really a big halt on your life and how you want to live your life. And as women, we're so connected with our family and our communities and our work. It has a huge ripple effect. When the woman does start to fall over, it ripples, out to everyone, and everyone's affected. So it's really important that women, look after themselves to prevent that happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And do you know when it's happened? Like, would anyone potentially be in burnout without realizing it?
I think people would know things weren't well, sort of know things aren't good, but may not know that actually has that label. And a lot of women just keep going and pushing themselves and not noticing the early warning signs. I think that's what is very damaging, when women just keep going and not, take notice of the early warning signs and do something about it. So, I think that people could certainly be in the early stages of burnout and not know that, and just keep pushing themselves, to the point where it's going to be harder to recover from. So,
yeah, absolutely. So what are the early warning signs that we should look out for? What would
So
be them?
the really early warning signs are, trouble sleeping. So unable to sleep, unable to fall asleep, or waking up during the night. So a sleep disruption is a really big thing, or unable to, and then, when you wake up in the morning, you're not refreshed either. So feeling tired all the time, depleted in your energy. Like I said before, a foggy sort of head, unable to make decisions that before were sort of relatively okay to make. So trouble making decisions, intolerant, just really short with people. So you don't have a lot to give, that sort of thing. A feeling of depression, a feeling of hopelessness that, things aren't going to get better. Withdrawal, like I said before, from relationships. So just, not being, not enjoying things that you used to enjoy, things like that. Not having the energy levels, and very, lack of motivation. And then there's the side, like uncontrollable crying. So just crying at the drop of the hat, unable to sort of get through the day without breaking down, that sort of thing. So it's those sort of things are showing the cracks that all is not well. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
It's not a nice place to be.
No, I'm just thinking, I can relate to a few of those for sure, and maybe even my husband at times, but I kind of always put that down to parenting young children, having broken sleep and being permanently tired.
And see, as women, we go through different stages, don't we, in our lives, and you're in the little kid stage, which is really taxing because, you don't get a good night's sleep, things like that, but you sort of still have that hope that you're going to get through it. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and you can sort of think about it and go, well, that's why we're feeling like that. When you're sort of on the edge of burnout, you really lose that hope, and there's really that, things aren't just going to get better. It's almost like a blackness, I can tell this isn't going to get better, if you know what I mean. Like you sort of lose that hope. So it might even look like chronic fatigue, things like that, even a change in your appetite. You either eat too much or not enough, so that sort of thing. Other emotional signs can be just that self-doubt, a sense of failure, questioning yourself all the time, a feeling of defeat that I'm not going to get through this, that sort of thing. And then you might start to have unhealthy coping mechanisms, like drinking too much, or even using illicit drugs just to get through. So there's quite a few warning signs that come with it.
Yeah. Wow. It is definitely very broad, and I think that's the thing, we could potentially go around in circles trying to self-diagnose, but what do you think are the best ways that we could look at, if we're sitting here thinking, this is sounding a little bit too familiar, maybe it's time to make some changes, but what should we be doing to prevent burnout, like to stop the cracks getting bigger?
And it's being aware of what's going on for you, going aware of what are the pressures in your life. Like we've said before, women have so much on their plate, and so just being aware of that, and really lowering the expectations of ourselves, that hey, we don't have to do all the things, and like you said about before, the mental load, like I don't have to carry all that. I can delegate, and I can lower my expectations of myself. Like a big thing for me was just I work from home a lot, and just to acknowledge that I'm a working mum. Like even though I work from home, I'm a working mum. So, give myself a break. Just even having that awareness can really help. And so just because I'm working at home doesn't mean that I can also clean the house, do all the washing and do all the other things as well, and really compartmentalizing. So no, I'm working today, even though I'm at home, I'm working. And so to really lower those expectations and be realistic about your expectations on yourself, I think is really the first thing. And the other thing that I talk to women about all the time is that we all have an emotional tank. And I encourage women to think about their emotional tank the same way that they think about the fuel tank in their car. So you don't let the fuel tank of your car run dry. You just don't, because we want it to go. I always say you let your car run out of petrol twice in your life, because it's so inconvenient and so embarrassing. We always make the time and the space to fill our tank, don't we? So that's how I talk to women about their emotional tank. It's non-negotiable. You have to fill your emotional tank so that you can do life and do life well. And burnout is really just when you've let your emotional tank run dry and you've run on empty for too long, and the engine's going to start to seize up. So we really have to be intentional about filling our emotional tank as a non-negotiable. As women, we put ourselves last. We put everyone else before us, and attend to everyone else's needs, and put ourselves last, and to our own detriment, because our tank just runs dry and we're no good for anyone. Because when we have a full emotional tank, that's when you're more resilient to life. Life's always going to throw us curly, but we want to have a full emotional tank so that we're resilient to cope with those. And that's where intentional self-care comes in. And that's what I'm teaching women all the time, is to fill your own tank with self-care.
I think, what you said a moment ago about our expectations, I really resonate with, because I think a lot of us, and even more so now, I mean, you only have to go onto social media and you're seeing perfect people with perfect families, and a lot of them aren't real, as in they've dressed their kids in matching clothes and taken photos for Instagram or whatever. You can spot those, but it's like there's this pressure, and we put it on ourselves. It's like no one else is telling us that we have to be perfect, and it's all those things where maybe we're like, well, you're thinking about what it was like when you were a kid, and the meals that your mum might have cooked and put on the table, but then you're not taking into consideration maybe that your mum didn't work as much, or my mum did work a bit, but very much less hours than I did, and it's fine. Like, my kids are perfectly happy if I cook them up. I steam some vegetables, I cook a sausage, and it takes me 5 minutes to cook it. Like, I don't have to prepare a meal that takes an hour for them to be happy and healthy. And obviously I just make sure that I'm not feeding them sausages every day. I might do that once, and then I'll give them some chicken or something the next day. And if my daughter wants to eat baked beans, that is totally fine. I'll make sure she gets her veggies as well. But it's like sometimes I have to let go of the ideals, and I think that's like what you're saying. I've let go of the ideals of a clean house a long time ago, because I'm like, this is my working time. I clean on Saturdays, and I and or get a cleaner so that I can spend my time doing stuff with my kids and what I actually want to do. But it's letting go of that, like, perfectionism and having to be everything. I think. I say, and I guess this is a little bit about, people say work-life balance. I like to call it business-life balance, because obviously we have a business as opposed to don't want to think of ourselves as workers, but we are working. The business-life balance for me means that you're getting a nice proportion of what you need. Not that they're all the same. So, in your life, you might think, well, I want to have this amount of time for my kids, versus someone else who maybe has older kids who doesn't have such a big bucket that they want to fill with the time that they spend with their kids. Likewise with family and friends and all of those things, where for me, that balance is about getting the right mix of what you want to have in your life, and also to be accepting that none of them are going to be perfect. Like, I'm doing everything, and I'm like, I'd love to exercise more. I'd love to do this more. I want to sleep more. I want to, it's like, I can't achieve everything. So I guess, do you help people even prioritize, well, how do you get the balance that makes you feel happy, that you're getting everything that you need, and that you also are able to manage your own expectations of yourself, and what's the word I'm trying to think of, that you've made that compromise with yourself, that it's okay, I'm not having 100% of everything, because that's unrealistic and impossible. The amount that I'm getting is actually good, and I'm grateful for it, and sure, I'd love to have more, but these other things are also important to me, so I'm making that compromise to make sure that I'm getting a bit of everything, rather than the feast and famine, which I think is the other approach, isn't it?
That's right. And you mentioned just before about perfectionism. When we're perfectionists, we really are setting ourselves up for burnout, because perfectionists, are always shifting the goalposts. They're always, I want more, there's always more, I could always do better. So even when they achieve something, they shift their own goalposts, and so they're always striving. Now, of course, it's good to have goals and, you know, things that you're aiming for, but you're really doing yourself a disservice if you're changing the goalposts, you know, and just having it outside your reach all the time, because, you know, perfection just doesn't exist. So perfectionism really can set you up for burnout. So you really, when I work with women, I look at that mindset of perfectionism and how it's not giving, you know, doing them a good service. Because, you know, as you know, Jess, it's a lot about mindset. It's about how you're perceiving things and the mindset, and it's really about lowering those expectations of yourself. Like you said before, about I can't do all the things, and that's okay. But what can I do? Yeah,
and I think, you know, in business, it might be something like you've set a date, a deadline for something, and you're stressing out about it. And I say to my clients, you know, well, it's your deadline. You're the boss. So you're not actually going to disappoint anybody else if you move the date or if you shift the deadline, you know, like you're in control here. This is your business. It's your life. You still within integrity, like it's perfectly okay to do those things and make those decisions, and to stop holding yourself to unrealistic expectations or putting unrealistic pressure on yourself to do things that aren't, you know, they're not serving you well. So,
one of the best things I did in my business was setting my hours that I work and the days that I work. And, you know, when I started out in my practice, it was, you know, I was working Saturdays and evenings and trying to be all the things for all the clients. But one of the best things I did was sit down and say, what days do I want to work and what hours fit me and my family? And I put them up. They're now on my calendar, and people can, you know, book a time that suits them. It's been the best thing for my business. And, you know, for me personally, it makes me the best therapist that I can be. And it hasn't affected my business, you know, financially at all. It's actually improved it. So I'm a big advocate for boundaries, you know, personal boundaries and work boundaries too. It just really, when you set up what's right for you, other people will come to that. You know, other people will work around it. And so I'm a really big advocate of that too.
Yeah, I totally agree. And because I started this business at the same time as I had my second baby, I knew what I was getting in for with the newborn. And, you know, it was like the whole reason for my business and how I created it was that I could have control over when I worked and how much I worked. And like you say, I set the hours of, well, this is when I'm going to be available, and these are times I'm just not going to be available. And like you say, again, it doesn't matter, because the right clients actually fit in with that. They agree with it. It worked. It worked really, really well, and still does. And the people who it doesn't work for, guess what? They're probably not your ideal clients. So it's kind of a blessing in disguise. You can say, no problem. You know, you don't have to service every single person who comes along who might have a need for what you do. You know, they're not always going to be the best fit for you. So I agree. It's like putting out what it is that you want and what you want. You know, this business, it's your life. So let's make sure that it's what you enjoy doing, and it suits you, and it supports your life and doesn't take over your life.
That's right.
So I think that's when we can really get that burnout happening, because you've got so many conflicting priorities that you're feeling like you haven't got enough time for everything. And it's like, well, let's step back. And it's one of the first things I get my clients to do in my business jam program is actually create their work week. Like, let's put in the non-negotiables. And the first thing I say is put your sleep in. Sleep is non-negotiable to me. If you are not have rested, then you're not doing your best work. You know, you'll be making decisions from a place of stress and flight or fight. And that brain is not thinking clearly. It's not making good decisions, and you know, you will be going around in circles and overthinking and getting overwhelmed and all of those things. So I totally agree. I think that's great that you also tell your clients to do that. And
absolutely.
So if we had one big tip, so if someone's thinking, oh, how do I even start, what should I do, what would be your one thing that you want us to think about or take away today? Remember.
So I guess my one takeaway would be, don't ignore the warning signs. Our body doesn't lie to us. Sometimes our mind can play tricks on us, but our body doesn't lie to us. So if you're noticing that your body isn't feeling right, that you're anxious, feeling anxious in your tummy, that your appetite's mucked up, or that you're just not sleeping, or that you've got headaches, or even aches and pains in your body that you haven't had before, or you're starting to feel some of those things that I mentioned before, there's the low energy, don't ignore the warning signs. Like, that's your body talking to you. That's your body saying, hey, all is not well, we need to change what we're doing. And and like we said before, we have this tendency to push through and sort of ignore it and keep going. But my one thing would be, don't ignore that. Listen to your body and go, okay, this is my warning sign. I need to do something. And it really is about being the best version of yourself. And if you keep on keeping on in that way, you're not going to be the best version of yourself. So don't ignore the warning signs. And I know that self-care is a bit of a buzzword at the moment, and women go, oh, I just don't have time for that. But I just start off with my clients and suggest just doing one thing every day that's just for you. And for some women, that's hard even to think of that. But I just say, let's just start baby steps, just one thing that's for you every day. And like you said before, it's different for everyone, and it can just be having a nice cup of tea in the sun in the morning, while you're patting the dog. That might be your one thing. It doesn't have to be a big trip to the day spa. It can just be 10 minutes in the sun having a cup of tea, or going for a walk, turning the computer off and just go for a walk around the block, or watch a funny movie. But one thing every day, that just start off with that and start filling that emotional tank, just slowly but surely. And also, I'd recommend, if you really feel like things are overwhelming and getting out of hand, to reach out and talk to someone. You don't have to do it alone. And there's so much support out there, and women need women. We need our tribe, which is why I love being a part of your page, Jess, just because we're women together, and I think that's really important, to reach out and support one another.
Yeah, so I think only a woman really understands what other women go through. So 100%, that's fantastic. So if we want to connect with you and learn a bit more about this, or even get in touch, maybe if we are thinking, gosh, I've got all of those warning signs and I need to do something about it, and they want hand holding, how can people best reach you or connect with you? What would you like to?
I'd love to chat with, if there's someone listening today that this has really resonated with, I'd love to chat with her and really help her through that. I mean, it's what I do, it's my passion, and I just love watching women become all that they can be, and not just keep spinning their wheels and trying on their own. So I have a Facebook page, Honni Hayton Counselling, which has my details there. That's probably the best thing, and maybe I could put a link here or somewhere, Jess, for people to my page, and they can connect there. I have a page, a group, a self-care group for women on Facebook, where just a beautiful group of women who support each other on their self-care journey as well, because it's, for a lot of women, it is hard to fill their emotional tank and start that self-care journey. So I've just got a group on Facebook where we encourage each other in that, and I just share, tips and strategies on how to do that and how to implement it into your busy life. So so I love being a part of that group as well. So maybe I can put a link to those.
Absolutely.
In the comments.
Please do. Yes, we will have those links for you here, so you can reach out and connect with Honni. Thank you so much for joining us today. That's been a really great chat. I've definitely learned a lot about burnout. I might make my husband watch this replay and have a listen, see if we can get him thinking about his own burnout as well.
Yes, because men are prone to it as well. I know you and I are very focused on women, but men are very prone to it too. It just looks a little bit different for men. But everyone in this modern life is really prone to it. So thank you for having me on, Jess. It's been really lovely to share with you today, and I appreciate the opportunity. So thank you so much.
No, thank you. It's lovely. And we'll talk soon. And anyone who's got any questions, you can always drop a comment, a question in below this video, and Honni can reply to you. So
that'd be awesome. Thanks, Jess. Bye.
Thanks very much. Bye.
Bye.
What does self-care really mean for you? If we step beyond the instant vision that pops into our minds of a relaxing in a hot soapy bathtub where no children are coming to interrupt our moment of peace, we actually think that self-care is about defining what you're doing in your life so that you're serving your needs and priorities at the highest level. I've been lucky enough to co-author a book called The Art of Self-Care, which invites you to step back from the busy work of caring for others and meeting the needs and demands of everyone else in your life to focus on your needs and wants. Unlike many other self-care books, this guide fills you with a whole life approach that helps you create balance and harmony in all aspects of your everyday life, including your physical, emotional, mental, and financial well-being. When we combine all of those together, we get a really well-rounded sense of well-being, and that is about self-care. If you would like to get a copy of this book, it's going to be released in early January. You can pre-order it now, so go to the show notes and click on the link to find out more about it and to get your copy before everybody else.